mom came into the room and she's like, look at my phone. And then I couldn't see it, so I had to look at mine. I'm like, oh.
I can't bet against Tom Brady. I have the Bucks winning 31-27 and Tom Brady going to his 10th championship.
Yeah, and I really think the Clippers' chance to win the championship was last year. And they were up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets.
Chris Paul is one of the most underrated players of all time. He's been the best player wherever he goes, and that includes with the Rockets.
You said you can't bet against Tom Brady, and as a Cowboys fan and what I just did last weekend, I am not going to bet against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I mean, that's all I can really say. There's two of the top 5 players in the league, and they are very, very good.
Hello, I'm Taylor Hearn, and you listen to The Outsiders' Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. And the man that I almost said this to before we were recording, Austin, and this is specifically to the NBA. I think tanking in the NBA has the best chance of working because it only really takes one guy to take your team from terrible to competitive. But it's how you got to get that right. Like, look at what the Spurs were competitive with Wembanyama in his rookie year. He's injured though, which is why they haven't been doing well. But I really understand the role of tanking. It technically has worked for the Rockets, even though they don't have that guy. They just have a bunch of players.
So you think tanking works?
Yes, but I think you just you get so bad, you get so many chances, and then you get lucky, like the Spurs got lucky. You could even say when the Mavs had Luka, they got lucky with tanking.
I don't know if it's luck per se. I mean, I guess for the Spurs, it could be that, right? But if it's not a first-round pick, how is it? Or if it's not a first pick in the draft, how is it lucky? I don't necessarily think that. How many teams that are great success stories right now tanked, like legitimately tanked? I don't remember the Celtics tanking. Yeah, they had high picks, but they kind of just traded with the Nets, and the Nets also became bad. Like the Tatum pick, that was not the...
Yeah, it was the Nets.
Yeah, so it's not really tanking. Even the Thunder, like they lost a good bit of games, but I don't know if they were tanking or were just bad. I mean, they were only bad. They only missed the playoffs for 3 years, and 2 of those years they were bad. Like one of the years they made the play-in, right? So that's not really a tanking year. The other 2 years they won 20 and 24 games, which is not really like it's bad, but they weren't last in the West in any season, right? So I don't know if that's really tanking. Like I think there's a difference between tanking and being bad.
That's fair. I would say the Pistons are an example of tanking working this season, even though they've been extremely bad. We talked about them. They're a 6th seed right now.
Sure. What other teams do you think tanking has worked for?
I would say the Mavs, because if you look at it, they got Luka, 3 overall pick, and then they got Derek Lively, which was very clear tanking. Even though they didn't get the number 1 overall pick, they got a center, Derek Lively, who was very helpful for them in that run.
It wasn't really tanking though, because if they didn't get they wouldn't get a pick, right? It was either don't get a single pick or get a pick, right? So it wasn't like to get better draft position. It was to get a pick. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, but I would say it's the same thing. Or no?
I would disagree because the difference between a 10th pick or 11th pick and a 20th pick, it's sizable a little bit, but there's a lot of guys in that range that are similar. 10th pick could be horrible, 20th pick could be horrible, 20th pick could be amazing. Right? That range of players is relatively equal. But the difference between a 10th pick and no first round pick is pretty big. Like that's a sizable difference. I think I get that as a strategy when you're not going to win because of injuries, right? That or if you're just playing poorly. would you rather not have a first round pick or have a first round pick? Because those are the two options.
Yeah, and to me, they tanked because you say the alternative. I understand what you're saying, and you're right in the alternatives. But to me, so they got that first round pick, they tanked.
Could you define tanking more than just losing 2 straight games at the end of the season? Because that's really what it was. It was 3 games at the end of the season they decided to lose. That's not really tanking. That's being bad, and then like, okay, we'll take off these 3 games. Does that really matter? They could. Well, here's my point. You could lose realistically 3 straight games trying. So there's no guarantee that they don't just lose those 3 games normally. Right? For a tanking team, it's over a long stretch that this team should have won 25 games and they won 15. Right? 10 games that's a lot of games to lose. But you could have a 3-game stretch at the end of the season where you lose 3 straight. You get what I'm saying?
Like, yeah, I get what you're saying. This is the longer period tanking. Like what?
I don't think losing 3 straight is tanking. It's almost like just resting your players. Like, is resting your players tanking? I don't think so. Like yes, if you're resting like what the Jazz are doing right now, yes, that is tanking because the Jazz are intentionally not playing their players basically the entire season. Like Lauri Markkanen should have played probably 20 to 30 more games. He's 100% healthy, but they keep having him out, and like the league fined him for it. They fined him $100,000 for it. That's tanking. But hey, 2 games at the end of the season, we don't want our star players to get hurt. I don't really like our spot. If we win both, we get in. If we lose both, we're out. But I don't want our guys to be injured. Because think about it. If a guy tears his ACL last game of the season, that impacts next season. That doesn't just impact these 2 games. That impacts next season. So I don't really consider that tanking. It's more of like resting your players so that you can win you're trying to win a title. And yeah, you don't win these games. But there's no guarantee. Well, because here's the thing. Even if you win those 2 games, right, you would have to win the next 2 as well to get into the playoffs because you're going to be the 10 seed. So you have to go on a run. You have to win 4 straight. So I don't really think it is as tanking, more as solidifying your position.
Okay. To me, it was very small, but it was like, okay, we're going to lose these 2 games by resting our guys so we get that better position. But
is losing a game tanking?
I think
here's my question. So you're a 5 seed, and you think that the 1 seed is significantly better than every other team, right? So you would rather, for your run to go further, be the 6 seed, so you play the 3 seed, 2 seed, and avoid the 1 seed and hope they lose, right? Than being the 5 seed. So you intentionally lose a game at the end of the season. You rest your players and lose that game. Is that tanking? So you go down a position in the playoffs to hopefully get a better route. Is that tanking?
Yes. I would say when you're purposefully losing to better position yourself, that'd be tanking.
It doesn't matter what the goal is. Besides, whether it's to get draft position or whether to get playoff positioning or whether to get anything, you think that's tanking?
Yes.
I think tanking is more of a upper level decision. It's a corporate level strategy is how I would see it. Like, hey, we are tanking. Like, that's something we plan on doing this season. Not a, hey, I'd rather play this team because we play better against this team, so let's lose this game. Or the example I'll give you, college football, right? If you're guaranteed to make it to the college football playoff, if you don't play in your conference championship, but you could miss it if you lose the conference championship game, you'd rather have that loss so that you miss the conference championship game and go straight in than go to your conference championship game, lose the conference championship game, and get out. I've had that multiple times in my friend group, right? That it's almost better for me to miss the conference championship game if I already have a loss. Because we play in like the CUSA, for example, that we've done. So we play in bad conferences. So to get in, like I'm 11-1, but if I go 11-2, or let's say I'm 10-2, right? And 10-2, but I have good wins. But if I go 10-3 and lose the conference championship game, I may miss. So let me just be 10-2 and make it than be 10-3 and miss. But you would still say that's tanking, right?
Yeah. Yes. But if we're talking about that season tank, what a lot of teams do, I would call like long-term tanking. And I think, does tanking work? I would say yes. Is it the highest probability? No. But I'm saying it does work in the NBA because if you get, like we did that, we talked about videos we've done in the past. When Victor Wembanyama was available, I was all in favor. I'm like, yeah, of course, tank. Because if you get that one guy in the NBA, you've seen it with LeBron too. Just you get one guy like that, he can really change your team. And then all you have to do is find pieces.
But most of the guys that are, let's say, upper echelon players, let's say top 10 players right now in the NBA, were not tanked for. Tatum was not tanked for. I don't even think Luka was tanked for because they traded for the pick.
Well, I think they tried, like they were tanking that season. They just didn't get a high enough pick.
I don't think they were tanking. I think they were just bad.
Okay. I think they were tanking. But yes, not number
You
one.
think they were intentionally losing it? I don't think they were intentionally losing games.
I think they were.
And what proof do you have of that? Because it can't just be losing a game. Because
no. I think like I remember those years. Like I wasn't a diehard fan, but I just remember from the outside, it was like, yeah, they talked to Dirk and they're like, hey, we want to lose games because that will help us in the draft. That's why they got Dennis Smith. And they were just doing
Dennis Smith was wait. Dennis Smith was post Luka though.
No, Dennis Smith was pre Luka.
He was? You're telling me that he was 2016?
Yes, he's the same draft as Mitchell.
Okay, so that'd be 17. That'd be 16,
yeah, 17. It'd be 17.
That'd be 16,
yeah,
16, no. 2016 draft, so 16, 17.
Yeah, no. Smith was already on the team when Luka came.
Got it.
But yeah, so those were the years when they were intentionally being bad.
Giannis wasn't tanked for. He was a 15th pick. Jokic wasn't tanked for. He was a second round pick. Shea was traded for, and he was like a 10th round or 10th pick whenever he was drafted by the Clippers. I just can't think of many guys that are at the top that were tanked for.
Do you count Wembanyama or no?
As a top 10 player or as a tank?
Do you count him as a tank?
The Spurs were just a bad team. I don't know if they were sitting guys. That's my point. I don't know if they were. They could just. I think to be tanking, you have to like intentionally like bench your best players. I think the Spurs were just that bad. Like I don't even know if the Pistons were tanking last year. That's kind of my point. Like
they weren't tanking last year, but I'm talking about when they got Cade and Jaden Ivey in those years.
Who were they sitting?
Well, I don't think they sit guys. I think you do have that level of sitting guys, but I view them as we're trading every single player we have, and we're going to sign random guys who probably aren't going to play well, but if they do play well, then we could trade them.
Okay.
That's how I view tanking.
I don't think tanking works. I don't think it's an effective strategy. Do you consider Brunson a top 10 player?
He probably has to be, right? Yeah.
Then he wasn't tanked for. He's a second round pick. No. So
well,
I just, or if you just do it, because technically Luka was not tanked for in the sense that he's not on the team that tanked. If you think he tanked for him, he's not on that team. Same thing with LeBron, right? So I do think like LeBron. I think Wemby was tanked for. I don't know if the Spurs tanked for him, but I do think Wemby was tanked for. If that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
I think teams tanked for Wemby. Now, whether the Spurs tanked, I think is a separate conversation. But whether teams tanked for Wemby, I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think teams are now tanking for Cooper Flagg.
What teams are tanking?
I would say the Jazz. Like you talked about.
I would agree with the Jazz. I don't think the Wizards are tanking. I think they're just terrible. Because they trade Kuzma, but Kuzma was horrible. Like, it wasn't like we traded, like one of our better players. He was just terrible for us this season. So I understand trading him even if you're not tanking, right? So I mean, we're just a really young team that's terrible. I don't consider that tanking.
I would say, this is me with my tinfoil hat on, I do think the Spurs are tanking a little bit.
I don't
think they're tanking.
No, I don't think the Spurs are tanking. I think that they just dealt with it. I think if you were tanking, they would not play Chris Paul. I think if they were tanking, they wouldn't play Devin Vassell. I think if they were tanking, they wouldn't play Jeremy Sohan. Like, these are guys that you don't just play if you're tanking. They won a game, I think, the last game they played, they beat the Knicks.
Okay.
I don't think you do. I don't think it's a game. I don't think you beat the Knicks by like 5 points if you're tanking. Right? Like, that's a good team that's playing guys. I know the Knicks are without Brunson, but they still had Cat. They still have OG. They still have Josh Hart. They still have Mikal Bridges. So I don't think those are games you win if you're tanking.
I would say the Hornets are tanking.
I could understand that. Because LaMelo, I think, is missing more games than he's actually hurt with. I could understand that. I think the Hornets are better than what the record is, and that's part of the reason why I think I could agree with them tanking. I don't think the Pelicans are tanking. I think their entire team died.
Yeah.
I think their entire team got injured.
No.
So I don't think they're tanking.
But yeah.
But like, Portland's a team that could be tanking, but it's not. They're trying to win games right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is just, I think it is a strategy. The problem with that strategy, I would say, is there are going to be a lot of misses. Like, you're going to draft a guy and he just doesn't pan out. So versus that, oh, we're going to get so high pick, but then you try to develop guys. Kind of, I would say the Rockets did. Like, I think the Rockets were purposefully bad, but then they got enough guys who were like, okay, let's try winning. Trying to think. I think that's what the Thunder did. Like, they gathered enough picks, but they're like, we're going to develop.
I don't think the Thunder tanked.
No, I don't think they're tanked, but I'm talking about kind of the other strategy versus tanking is accumulating as many picks. And then we're just going to keep trying.
The Thunder were just playing young guys and trade away the old guys, but we're playing all the good, like Shea was playing, right? All the good players were playing. They were just not a good team because they were young, right? That's kind of how I view the Pistons last season, where the Pistons were still playing Cade. You're not playing Cade if you're tanking, right? Like, you're not playing a potential all-star level player if you're tanking. So I think there's some teams that tank. I don't think tanking necessarily works. And whether that's because of the draft lottery or just because teams build each other better with trades or whatever, I think teams are built more successfully through solid drafting than it is just trying to get the best guy in the draft. Because you don't actually know what that guy's going to be the best. Like, you obviously think that Cooper Flag's going to be the best guy in the draft, and I definitely do. But we'll see in 5 years, right? Like, that'll be more of the wait and see type of thing. Because people really believed in Marvin Bagley the year that Luka was drafted. So it's going to be, or DeAndre Ayton, who was the first pick. So it's more of a wait and see. And I don't think teams. I think there's too many guys that we think are home runs, and that teams don't do enough draft or scouting, and then they end up having to go through the entire process of tanking again.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. It's
well, because I think my biggest proponent. Sorry for interrupting. I think that my biggest proponent for this is the 76ers. The 76ers definitely tanked, and they haven't even gotten to the conference finals. And that's with MVP level players, obviously, and a lot of trade moves, and getting Harden, and getting Maxey, and getting Paul George, right? And it's been a horrible, horrible experience for not only their fans, but the organization as a whole.
Yeah, and that's a great point of bringing that up. And to me, I think it does work when you get that hit, but you are risking a lot of, you're not getting those other guys like you talked about with the better, your way is just draft guys. That to me has a higher probability, but I do think there is success if you do get that guy. But that's kind of what we think about it. We'll have to see what happens with Cooper Flag and then look at other teams and kind of how it's just not the better. Then the NBA has done it to where it's not helpful for teams. So, and it's just not helpful for basketball when a lot of teams are trying to tank. So we'll keep you updated on the NBA season. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.